Gonzalez here, one of your Cancer Plan for Life guides to better health. Today we're going to be making breakfast cookies. Yes, you can eat cookies for breakfast. These are filled with things like oats, bananas, almond butter, applesauce, maple syrup, all wholesome ingredients. We're going to try to get as whole and as healthy as we possibly can. And I'll give you some options if you're not quite there. As you know, we like to eliminate white processed sugar, so I'm going to substitute the maple syrup for that. The sweetener in maple syrup is a little bit sweeter than sugar, so you don't need quite as much. We're also going to put lots of things in here that will make it moist and chewy, the bananas, the applesauce. Oils we're trying to cut down on, so I will give you the recipe both ways. You can use oil, you can use vegetable oil, coconut oil, but for any recipe, and this goes for any recipe that you have, you can substitute amount for amount. So if it's a half a cup of oil, you can substitute a half a cup of applesauce. The applesauce will work the same way that the oil will. The consistency will be a little bit different, but not a whole lot different. And this is absolutely zero fat. So we do want you to cut down on the fat a little bit. As you know, a high-fat diet does increase your risk of cancer. So with these recipes, do it at your own pace. If you find that you want to maybe just do half the oil and half the applesauce, that's good, and just work your way into it. So let's go over the recipe now. So I've mixed the dry ingredients in this bowl. And what I've mixed is a cup of rolled oats, and rolled oats are not processed oats. They take the grain and they flatten it. They just roll it out so it's flat, that's all. And we need a cup of flour. And instead of white flour, you should try, if you can, to get away from processed white flour. So instead of white flour, I used a half a cup of amaranth. It's spelled A-M-A-R-A-N-T-H, amaranth flour. It's a whole grain, and it gives a beautiful nutty flavor. And I also used a half a cup of chickpea flour instead of the 1 cup of wheat flour, and that also makes it gluten-free as long as your oats are gluten-free. We also have in here half a teaspoon of ground cinnamon, half a teaspoon of aluminum-free baking powder. Make sure it's aluminum-free. Aluminum, we're trying to get rid of aluminum in our lives as well, and a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. It can be any kind of salt. You know, when you're using spices, I tend not to buy organic just because they're so much more expensive, and you're using such a tiny, tiny bit. It doesn't make a huge difference. So, you know, my cinnamon, I'm not gonna, if it's on sale and it's the same price, I'm gonna buy it. But normally I don't buy my spices organic. But you're certainly welcome to do that, and that would be best. And then I've also mixed a 1/4 teaspoon of cardamom. Cardamom is an exotic spice. It's often used in Indian cuisine, and it gives a nice, you kind of don't notice that it's there, but the cardamom is just a nice background flavor, I think. So I added a 1/4 teaspoon of that. If you don't have cardamom, that's fine. You do not have to use it. So after this is mixed, we're going to add the liquid ingredients. And here I have a half a cup of almond butter, a 1/4 cup of applesauce, or you can use oil. So you can use a 1/4 cup of oil, but really if you can try the applesauce. Try half and half and see how that works. And then eventually get to all applesauce. And 4 tablespoons of pure maple syrup. And this is the pure maple syrup. It's not the syrup that is artificially flavored and colored with high fructose corn syrup. This is just pure maple syrup from a tree. It comes from maple trees, and they just tap it so that it's completely whole. It's not processed. And there's also a 1/4 teaspoon of vanilla extract. Okay, 2 bananas are going to go in here as well, but I'm going to mix up these ingredients. I'm going to add them to the dry, and I'm going to work that in. I'm also putting in 2 very ripe bananas, and you can see here that
this banana looks old, it's got brown spots on it, you actually want that because that contains tumor necrosis factor, TNF, which helps to combat cancer. So look for your crummy bananas in the produce. They'll usually give them to you for a really good price. They usually throw them away. So 2 very ripe mashed bananas.
So I've mashed up 2 very ripe bananas, and I've taken the banana peels and I've put them in my house plants and in my outdoor plants. The banana peels make wonderful compost just as they are. And if you don't do that, go ahead and compost if you do that. So I'm just going to mix this all around. This smells delicious. You don't have to eat these for breakfast, but I like it. It's very convenient. It's just a quick grab. I can just grab one of these and head out the door. And it's giving me everything I need really to start the day. And you should have breakfast. It is important. You know, you wake up and your body needs fuel. And it doesn't need coffee. While that may make you feel like you have more energy, it's really not providing you much energy. It's a fake energy. So after this is mixed up, I'm going to add some blueberries. I found these whole dried blueberries. They're delicious. This company also makes dried cherries. You can use raisins, cranberries. You can use chocolate chips if you want. I'm going to add about 1/3 of a cup. I just love these particular dried blueberries are just delicious. And the blueberry and the oatmeal and the banana combination, I just think it's perfect. So I'm going to make these a little bit big. They're dropped by tablespoons. And we're going to fill the whole pan. You can use parchment paper, which would be better. It's easier to get them off, but just like this is fine as well. I try to avoid the aluminum, so I don't use foil to put on the baking pan. Okay, and these are going to go in a 350 oven for between 13 and 17 minutes, depending on your oven. I have a convection oven, so these usually take about 16 minutes to do.
And here's the finished product. They are delicious, they are nutritious, and you feel like you're cheating because you're having cookies for breakfast. But it's really a great, convenient way to get some breakfast in you. Make sure you are drinking your lemon water in the morning, and you can have it with a side of fruit if you wish. So you can find this recipe and all the instructions, and you can print this out on our website. And if you have any questions, always remember to contact us on the contact page. And I appreciate you watching. Please enjoy.